Alright, we're going to do a video on shop triage today. I've got 4 guitars in here, and I actually can't remember what I'm supposed to do to all of them. So we're going to go through this together. I do know, and I'm using the camera, the new camera now, but I'm using the internal microphones, which is the first time I've done the internal mics. So that should be kind of interesting. See how it turns out. So the first patient on the bench here is the 70s. D18. Of course, this is kind of what I specialize in, 70s D18s. I picked this one up locally. Guy in Albuquerque brought it to me. And it's a pretty typical 70s D18. One thing I noticed about the top is really brown. This guitar has been played outside a lot, maybe, I don't know. But it's really brown, pumpkin orange, you know. So first thing we're going to do is see what the bridge location looks like. And here's my, again, my magic ruler. And what you want to do, I've got a mark right here. Where is it? Here it is. There's your mark. So I'm looking at a 12 and 7/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7/8. Just a little bit past 12 and 7/8 right there on that red mark is where the bass needs to be. Okay? I'm going to put the middle of the ruler on the 12th fret, and I'm going to run it back over to here. So the middle of the ruler is on the 12th fret, and it's 1/8 of an inch off. In fact, the bass is where the treble ought to be. The second check that I can use just to verify that is to put the edge of the yardstick right here on the front of the body. You can use your fingers like that, and it ought to be about 11 1/8 from here, from the front of the body to the front of the bridge. That's a measurement that I use just to make sure that the bridge is on straight. I don't really use that for the saddle location. I just use it to kind of look, give me more information. And it's right at 11 inches, so it's going to be about 11 1/8. You'd be surprised, 11. You'd be surprised how many Martin bridges are on crooked. When I go to scoot it backwards and everything, you'll end up with a little bit more finish on one side or the other. The bridge was on crooked. And we're going to put it back on the 12th fret again, middle of the 12th fret. This bridge is 1/8 of an inch out of position. Pretty standard for 70s. The pick guard has been replaced because this is not an under the finish pick guard. Somebody's replaced that and did a pretty good job on it, you know. Fits pretty good around the rosette. It's got some wear because he inherited this guitar. I'm not sure if grandfather or father. I can't remember which one. Get that out of the way. But there's some wear right here, playing wear with a pick or fingernails or whatever. I think he said he was a fingerstyle player, and it's got this kind of unique little spot right here on the bridge, and that's evidently from rubbing your hand on it, planting your hand right there. So my guess is that's probably finger wear. No big deal, but I noticed the pick guard is worn away a little bit. It's kind of got a little ripple in it. Bridge is going to get scooted. It's got the big rosewood bridge plate. Hard to look. There's a little bit of warp going on in the top right here that I can feel. Let's see if there's any way that I can show you what I'm talking about on this. Let's take a yardstick. That's why I like a wooden yardstick. I can flop it on there. And you see all that going on down there? There's quite a bit of belly right there. I'm going to balance that out and quit looking at the camera. And you can see where it's got a hump right here and it's falling away in a dip right there. That would be a belly. However, what I want to know is why is there a belly? I suspect one of two things. I suspect either we got loose braces in here, but I'm not too sure about that because where the brace is pretty flat. Usually when you get a loose brace, it'll have a hump where the brace is right here, over the corner of the bridge. This hump is back behind. And because of the coloration on the top, my assumption is that this guitar has been played outside a lot. And so my guess here is probably the bridge plate got hot and allowed a little warpage to happen. So My process for doing this is always take the bridge off first, and then I'll take the bridge plate off. And I like to take the bridge plate off with the bridge off so that I can cool the top better. When I do all that, I'll be able to flatten the top out. I'll be able to see what's going on. My new bridge plate will go in there and give that top nice and flat. I don't mind the belly, you know. I'm just pointing out here that this is a little bit of an unusual belly on this. It just kind of caught my attention. I would check the bridge, make sure it's not coming off. I don't care if it's coming off right now because I'm going to take it off, but it would help explain that hump. If the bridge was coming off a little bit, it'll shift the load a little bit differently. And this is a 0.003 feeler gauge. I told you guys how to make these when I was talking about how to set up feeler gauges in a previous video not too long ago. And that's what I've done here. I've taken a little piece of feeler gauge and just stuck it in between two pieces of wood. Super glue or epoxy or whatever glue you have handy, make little feeler gauges like this. Super handy. You can make 5 or 6 of them out of the same feeler gauge. Yeah, our bridge has got a little bit of looseness going on. Feeler gauge is going in just a little, but not much. You know, I don't think that belly is caused by the bridge or vice versa. So, okay, let's look at the frets. I'm going to bring this guitar in close again. We're looking at the frets, and let's see if we can see these here. They're flat. Hard to tell if I can get that in the camera or not, but these frets are really flat topped and they're worn in addition to that. Okay, so that's going to cause hard fretting. It's going to cause buzzes. I talk about flat frets in another video where I talked about, I can't remember what the name of it was. It's called How Frets Affect Your Buzzes. So this guitar is going to be hard to play. So it's going to get new frets. I'm probably going to put Evo frets on this and then we'll never have to do it again. Because of that, it's going to need new nut. I already measured the spacing in the nut right here using my calipers. And I can just tell by looking at it that the low E and A are really close together compared to the rest of the strings. I'll grab my calipers and I'll show you. Okay? Calipers, measuring the spacing in between. And that between the A and the E is 230. Between the D and the G is 260. So 30 thousandths of an inch more space. Between the G and the B is 260. And between the E and the B is 250. And so forth. So we've got 230, 250, 260, 260, and 230. So 30 thousandths of an inch is that much. You know, that's how much, I mean, it's bigger than a G string. G string is 26, and the D would be 35, 36. So, you know, that's about how much difference there is with a D and a G string. So it's going to get a new nut. It's going to have a lot better spacing. It's just typical 70s. It's got Grover automatics on it, which is definitely not my favorite tuners. Automatics. It's going to get new tuners. It's going to get Grover 18 to 1s. It's going to get a neck reset. The action is pretty high. There's the action. Let's get it in here on the camera. There we go. I think we can see that. Okay, we can measure it too. When the action is this high, I don't even bother with the feeler gauges. I just take my calipers. We're just getting a rough action right now anyways. And I will recheck after I do frets. 150. Yeah, that's pretty typical. Pretty typical, 150. I'm going to want it at 93 thousandths of an inch. So 90 to 150 is roughly 60 thousandths of an inch. It's quite a bit. So 60 thousandths of an inch here is 120 at the saddle. Divide that by 3. 40. Taking 40 thousandths of an inch off the heel right here. And again, I'm checking all these numbers later. And that's what we're going to see. Oh yeah, actually it's going to be more than that because this saddle is super low. So I didn't take into account the new saddle. That one is, seriously? 40 thousandths of an inch. The saddle, man, that's not even touching the string. So let's say I'm going to add 100 thousandths to that plus 100 thousandths over there. So 200 thousandths. So I'm going to be taking about 60 thousandths of an inch, 80 thousandths. I'm going to be taking almost 80 thousandths of an inch. Twice as much as I originally said off of this. And so now we're talking a big neck reset. So what happened here, this action is high, but he also has absolutely no saddle in there. So if I put the saddle that I want in there, the action is going to come up even more. So this saddle is 40 thousandths of an inch right now. I would like for it to be about 140. So I'm just roughly quickly adding 100 thousandths of an inch to that saddle. That's going to make that action come up another 50 thousandths of an inch. That means his action with the saddle that I want is really going to be 200 thousandths of an inch, almost a quarter of an inch off the fingerboard. So yeah, definitely needs a neck reset. Another way to check really quickly, just to confirm your diagnosis of a neck reset, is to take this yardstick again and run it, lay it flat on the top of the guitar like this. Yeah, you can see that. Lay it flat on the top of the guitar and come up here to the nut right here. Scoot back in here a little bit. Right there. And as you can see, the edge of this yardstick right here, because it's flush on the top, so this is giving us a line running off of the top. The neck ought to be on the body at about a 2-degree angle, about like this. I'm exaggerating. Okay, it ought to be about 2 degrees. So that means, I know this from experience, that when the neck angle is correct, the top of that fingerboard ought to be right about the bottom of this yardstick. That's not a measurement that I actually use to do the neck reset. It's just a measurement that I use to confirm, to double check things, and that sort of thing. So once again, when you lay the straight edge on top of the guitar, the top of the fingerboard ought to come to just below the straight edge here. And that tells you that the neck is on the body at an angle. And what we can see here is it's not even, the edge of that fingerboard is clear up here on the yardstick. So we have a pretty serious neck reset going on here. So after I reset that neck, bring that back, the top of that fingerboard is going to come just about to the bottom of that yardstick. I use that a lot of times to help diagnose a tricky guitar. Sometimes the neck will lie to you, and it will take a little bit more or a little bit less than you would think. The measurements never lie, but I always check and recheck everything. Common technique that a lot of people use is take a straight edge again, run it down the fingerboard, and it should just kiss the top of the bridge. But I've had guitars where it clears the bridge by quite a bit. And I'm always wondering, what the heck? What's going on out there? I got to watch that. I can't say those words if I'm going to monetize this. What's going on right there? So that's why I say the neck lies to you that it needs a little bit more angle or something. Almost usually always a little bit more angle. So the straight edge down the fingerboard like this, again, is just another check on the check. And this one's falling well below the bridge right now. Quite a bit below the bridge. I mean, let me see if I can get that up there to show you. It doesn't really matter. You'll take my word for it. It is falling. The wall's in the way here. Let's bring it over here. There we go. And you can see how much that straight edge is falling beneath the bridge. It ought to be just kissing the top of the bridge. So you could measure that too if you wanted to. But I know from experience, having done, how many neck resets have I done? I've done, I average 25 a year. 10 years it'll be 250. 20 years it'll be 500. And then another 2 years, so 550. So about 550 neck resets is what I've done. That's getting up there. Quite a few neck resets. And so my experience tells me that it's not much use measuring that distance. I used to do that. I used to go to all the trouble of trying to raise the bridge back up again to mimic the deflection. It's not that important. The single most critical thing that I have is this neck reset jig right here, which I've illustrated before, and it just simply puts a clamp in there with a piece for the butt and a piece for the heel right here. And you can string up a guitar that way, and you can check everything. You can leave it in there overnight. You can leave it for days if you want to. And that is the single most accurate thing. I put the saddle I want, and I put that in the jig, string it up, release partial tension, and I get the action I want with the saddle I want. And that's a done deal. Everything else is just a secondary measurement. But it's a check. It helps you give you clues when something's not going right. So you got that measurement. You got the straight edge on top of the guitar. It's not going to work because the pickguard's in the way here, but here it is again. At that measurement, you can take a look at that. You can do your calculations. I trust the calculations more than anything. So this guitar definitely needs a neck reset, no question about it. Because it's the 70s and has the big massive bridge plate in there, it's going to get a new bridge plate. It's going to get the works. It's going to get tuners, nut, frets. While I'm doing the frets, I will reshape the fingerboard if I need to. Let's check the relief. There's this thing, pretty handy tool for this. You set it in there and you can take a look at the fingerboard. And this guitar's got a ton of relief. This guitar's got a lot of relief. It's got about 40 thousandths of an inch of relief right here, which is a lot. However, what this tells me is that it's high right here in the first and second frets. So what I would do is just reshape the fingerboard up to about the 5th fret, but mostly focusing on the 1 through 3 fret. Curve that fingerboard a little bit. Drop the relief out. I have another trick I've been using where I put a dowel inside the neck and epoxy it in there. That helps strengthen it, kills all any unwanted metallic overtones from this metal truss rod that's in there. So taking care of the relief when we do the frets. So tuners, nut, relief, frets, bridge is coming off, bridge plate, it's getting a new bridge plate, bridge is going to get scooted backwards. After I get all that done, let's see, popsicle brace is going to come out. I'll scallop the braces, probably just the X braces, but I'll listen to it and see what I think of the sound of the guitar. Scallop the X braces, and then the whole guitar is going to sit for 2 weeks maybe, and then I would do a neck reset to the final guitar. These are pretty decent looking bridge pins in here, and we took them out and looked at them. I think they're hard plastic, but they look pretty decent. They fit good. So I'll probably turn those around. I might use antique acoustics. I don't know. We'll get to that. That'll be the last thing. So this is a Virgin 1970s, and we're going to completely overhaul it. People ask for A/B tests a lot of times, but I can't even play the guitar right now. 150 thousandths of an action. The saddles, the strings are slapping back and forth on here. It's a totally unfair, it's a worthless A/B because this is such a win-win situation where there's so many things wrong and hampering this guitar's sound that it's just not even worth it to me to A/B this thing. I suppose I could. Maybe I'll take it back upstairs and hook the mics up and we'll record it for posterity. I've actually already done that a zillion times, so it's old news to me. So All right, that's the 7. Second guitar on the bench is a D35, 70s D35, that is in mid-progress. I have not done the tuners yet. They're sitting over there in a box, ready to go. It's got tuners. I was able to get 6, a package of Grover 18-to-1. Stuart McDonald got it back in stock. I ordered a bunch of them. And the frets on this one were pretty good, so I did not do frets on this. It's going to get tuners. Right now, at this point, it has had the bridge removed, and it is in mid-bridge scoot here. So this is what we look like. This is what it looks like right now. I've got tape over the front of this to stop my glue. There's my glue finish repair. Again, I use Stuart McDonald Amber Super Glue. It matches the color of the finish really, really well. It's fairly easy to work with. I like it a lot. It's proven to be a very durable fake finish. I've used lacquer in the past, and the problem with lacquer, first of all, is I'm allergic to it. You got to spray. And man, you got to spray, and you got to spray, and you got to spray. It takes a long, long time to build up the depth that you need. And it's highly allergic, man. I get one whiff of uncured fresh lacquer, and I have an instant headache, which for hours. Even using a mask. If I take the mask off and smell the lacquer on the mask, it's a done deal. So I use the Stuart McDonald Amber Super Glue, and this is rough. I haven't even sanded or anything, and that's what it looks like right now. One thing about ebony bridges, they stain the wood, and you can see that very clearly on this guitar because I haven't touched it up yet at all. It stains the wood, it stains it dark up on the front right there. You never quite get them as clean and pretty looking as the D18s. The D18s have rosewood bridges. The rosewood doesn't seem to stain it as much. So I've got dowels glued into here. I don't think the dowels do anything for the strength, but they do give a little bit more glue surface when I go to re-glue the bridge. So I put the dowels in there when I do the bridge plate. It's got a new bridge plate on it. It's getting a Southeast Asian rosewood bridge plate, which comes to right to the back corner right here. What this is going to be, it's got a bevel on it. And that's where this guitar is. So this one's going to get scooted. And you know, we talked about scooting before. I'll go ahead and give you a brief rundown on why I scoot the bridges. Because as you saw on that D18, it's an 1/8 of an inch out of position. So your options are to use an oversized bridge. You've got to move the saddle back. Okay, that's all there is to it. You've got to move the saddle back 1/8 of an inch if you're going to get it in tune. That's your first deal. You can accomplish that by using an oversized bridge that fills in this entire hole right here and has the saddle scooted back and has the pins at the same distance from the saddle. So you scoot the saddle back, you scoot the pins back, and you use this oversized part to cover up that scar in the front. Oversized bridges are just so ugly to me. They're just, I can tell, I can see an oversized bridge across the room. I hate them because they're polar opposite of a 30s, 40s, and 50s bridge, which to me are the way bridges ought to be. The reason I have that opinion is because I have played around with straight bridges. That's a bridge where it doesn't have a belly. This is a belly bridge right here. Let's come up to the camera again. This is a belly bridge right there. A straight bridge is where you cut that off and you just have a straight bridge. It's a Gibson thing. Both of my Prue guitars have straight bridges. If you go take a look at the Hudson Dalton guitar, it's got almost a straight bridge. It's got very little belly compared to a Martin bridge. I have taken, me and Mario Prue both, have taken a guitar like this with the imprint for a belly bridge, and we've put straight bridges on them. And even cut the edge off of the same bridge, okay? Run this through the bandsaw and cut that off and make a straight bridge out of it. Put it on the guitar and compare it. And you always have a control guitar So you're comparing your test guitar to the control guitar, which has had no changes to it. And our feeling, evaluation, analysis, our reaction to go into a straight bridge is that the guitars are punchier. They've got a more immediate reaction. Boom! They've got a little bit more whoofiness to them. So like I said, a straight bridge is very much a Gibson sort of thing. Martin's used them, but Gibson's got that. And you kind of have a little bit of that Gibson sound. You've got a different tone. Okay? So the 30s, 40s, and 50s belly bridges are thinner this way than the 70s bridges by about 1/16 of an inch, all the way up to maybe about 1/8 of an inch. So I don't like oversized bridges because they're going the opposite direction of the way I think a bridge should go. I think a bridge should be thinner rather than wider. Okay? So I don't like oversized bridges. They change the whole torque of the top. You know, if you had this big fat massive bridge on here, it's not going to torque as opposed to when it's thin, almost a line, okay? A line is going to torque like this as opposed to this, which is not. It's going to be flatter and more stable. So your top is just going to react completely differently. Okay, so I hate oversized bridges. So your other option is to simply fill in the saddle slot right here and scoot the saddle back. But if you do that, you're going to get really close to the low E right here. So your saddle slot is going to come really close to the low E because it has to come back 1/8 of an inch. So that's pretty much the saddle slot width is going to have to come back. The front of the slot is almost going to have to be where the back is. And you can see that slot's going to run right up at the front of that hole right there. That's going to cause an extremely sharp string angle for one thing. But the second thing it does is it moves that fulcrum point into the middle of the bridge. And again, instead of having a torque system like this, you're moving that to the middle of the thing and it doesn't torque as much. In fact, it's balanced, you see. I don't like that. To me, the standard is the 30s, 40s, and 50s Martin bridge. That's what I'm trying to accomplish here, is to push that more towards that sound. Alright, so fine. The other thing, when I see a saddle back on that, again, it's ugly. You know, I can see it, it's like, that just doesn't look right because it's not where it's supposed to be on the front. And in fact, it's 30s, 40s, and 50s saddle even just a little bit more farther forward on the bridge than this. You know, that could have cracked on the leading edge sometimes too. But so I don't like that. So I don't like oversized bridges. I don't like scooting that saddle back into the middle of the bridge. So there's your two bridge options. Your third bridge option is just take the correct size bridge, the correct saddle, and you just move the thing back to where it should be. You got a scar on the front of the bridge that's ugly. So every single option you have here is ugly, but one of them is structurally structure's alright, structurally correct to the 30s, 40s, and 50s bridge. It has the bridge saddle where it's supposed to be. It's going to be thinner because one trick that I use on a 70s bridge, remember, is to reshape it to a 50s. Let me get my 50s bridge. Here's my genuine 1950s D18 bridge. And when you put it up against the 70s, you can see that it's just a little bit thinner right there. And it's quite a bit thinner right up here on the wings. Okay? See that? So I use this 50s bridge as my template for all my bridges. So when I make this 70s bridge narrow by reshaping it right here, that means that when I scoot it backwards, it's going to almost fit inside the old footprint back here. I'll have to take very little finish off the back right here. So I really have done no damage to the guitar. Rather than if you just take this bridge and you scoot it back, score the finish, remove the finish, you're going to end up taking about 1/8 of an inch of finish off the back right here. And then you're committed. You'll never be able to go back to the bridge. So if you ever wanted to go back to stock and have your guitar play out of tune again, all you'd have to do really is pull my bridge off and put a new 70s bridge on there, and you could be back to playing out of tune again. And you would have most of your original finish. It'd be just a little bit gone. You'd have to make it a little bit oversized, but that's minimal. Okay. The whole reason that I reshaped the bridge to thinner is because it matches the 50s bridge. It matches the 30s, 40s, and 50s Martin bridge being a little bit thinner. The second thing about scooting that bridge back on here, it changes the position of the bridge relative to the X brace. So the X brace is right here, and it's 1.5 inches back. The 30s would be 1 inch. So that means that on the 30s, the bridge would be farther back from the X in comparison, relatively farther back from the X. So when you take the 70s bridge and you scoot it back 1/8 of an inch, you get it farther away from the X, which makes it a little bit more closer to the 30s and 40s. Okay, so I like that. I think it changes the tone a little bit. Just things that I like. That's all there is to it. And it's a small thing, It's 1/8 of an inch. It's not that big of a deal. But it is scooting the bridge back a little farther away from the X, changing the tone of it a little bit, as opposed to being closer to the X, like a 50s would be, a real 50s, not 51 that I did on a couple of videos ago. That's a great guitar, but it has a characteristic mid-range punch that you don't find in the 30s. In the 30s, you got that more woofy sound. So anyway, I just feel like by scooting the bridge back, I've taken it a little bit more away from the X. I brought a little bit more different tone in there, which I think most people like. So that's another reason why when I scallop 70s, I typically only scallop the X braces these days, because I've scooted this back. I've added a little bit of bass. Do the X braces, add a little bit more bass, but I don't want it to get woofy and mushy. So, okay, so this one's going to get scooted back here a little bit. I'm going to clean this up, clean these dowels. This is a D35 too, by the way, and I do not scallop D35s. The reason I don't scallop them is because the braces inside are 1/4 of an inch wide. A D28 is 5/16 of an inch wide, so that's considerable. I don't like mushy guitars, and when you scallop a D35, there's a really good chance it's going to get mushy. They're already a little mushy right off the bat. You almost never hear a bright D35 as opposed to like a bright D28. Non-scallop braces, all that kind of thing. That thinner top comes from the OM guitars, and some people, the rumor, the word, the urban legend, part of it's probably fact. The reason that they went to that 1/4 inch bracing was because at the time that they introduced the D35, Martin was not scalloping guitars at all, and the craftsman wanted to try to bring in a little bit more of that pre-war sound, the softer, bassier, wider. You had to differentiate this from a D28 somehow. So they went to a 1/4 inch bracing, which made it a little bassier, When a guitar gets to be of this age, it's the 70s, the top's got a lot of stress on it for a long time, pretty basic guitar already. So my job on a D35, what I try to do is brighten it back up just a little. I want to keep the bass, I don't want to lose the bass on it, but that's going to come from the bracing. So I'm not going to mess with the bracing, but I want to brighten up the other components. So I want to use, sometimes if a guitar needs to be brighter, I will use a rosewood bridge on it. A Madagascar rosewood, a Honduran rosewood, a bright rosewood bridge. Sometimes I will enlarge the sound hole on it. When you enlarge the sound hole on a D35, that is a guitar that the large sound hole really, really pays dividends on, because you got the bass already from the top and the bracing, and then you take and you enlarge your sound hole and you let the mids and the highs out a little bit better, And now you got a guitar that's got it all. It's got really good bass, it's got really good mids, and it's got really good highs because you open the sound hole up. So, D35s are one of my favorite guitars to open sound holes on, more so than 28s even. I don't think I've ever opened an 18 yet. They're already bright, you know. I've played a couple that have been open, and the Collings, Clarence White was the Collings Winfield now. That's a large sound hole. Mario Prue makes a large sound hole mahogany guitars. They sound great, but on a D18 Martin, I have never opened a sound hole. I like to do it to the 35s. And I don't think we're going to do it to this guitar. We're going to play it and see. This guitar does have the Southeast Asian rosewood bridgeplate in it. I did that to my personal D35, the shop D35, a couple years ago. It just blew me away with how solid it was. It was just, I've done a lot of D35s. I put maple, black locust, and they sound great. But that Southeast Asian rosewood, it just had something to it. And I go, gosh, this is really pleasing. You know, there was an aggressive foam, punchy sound. It was terrific. So I've been doing some Southeast rosewood plates, Southeast Asian rosewood plates on these. This one's got one. All right. So what this guitar needs is the bridge put back on. It's going to get tuners. Frets were good. It's going to have a popsicle brace taken out, and then I'm going to string it all up, and it's going to sit for a little while, and then it's going to need a neck reset. So that's what this one gets. Now, I'm making a video of it so I can remember. Third guitar. This is 80s. I believe it's an 80s. Might be a late 70s. No, it's an 80s. HD28. So herringbone D28. I don't know why I took this. You dropped this one off. That's right, yeah. This was a customer from way back east, New York, if I remember. New York, Pennsylvania, way back east. He was in the area. I've worked on a couple of guitars of his already. So he dropped this one off for me. You know, I've been trying to focus on 70s, but if it's a previous customer and he's going to drop it off and it sounds interesting, then I'll take it, most likely. And that's the case with this guitar. It's a 90s, yeah, because I shaved the back braces. So it's a 90s HD28. So what I do to this one, if I can remember, I did some frets, I remember that. Not sure if I refretted the whole thing or not, but I know the frets are brand new. So I know I did at least 5 frets on this one. I might have done them all. I'll have to really look at that. I can tell by the ends, because I have a characteristic way of doing frets, and I can tell my frets. I've done 15. I've done 15 frets, brand new frets. It's going to get a pickguard on it. It's going to get tuners on it. And I did not do the nut on this guitar. Yes, I did. Yeah, that's my nut. I did a nut in order to match the new frets and to get the string spacing right. I think I took the popsicle brace out of this one. Yep, no popsicle brace. Really clean too. And came out real nice. No popsicle brace. And I finished, yes I did. I finished the scallop. Oh yeah, I remember this one. Yeah. I finished the scallop on this HD28. On the HDs, the scallop bracing has a scoop in it and a curve to it. And what Martin does on the HDs is they go non-scallop for about 1.5 inches, and then they make this really cookie cutter scallop, especially on this vintage guitar in the 80s and 90s, the mid 70s when they started, all the way up. I guess they're still doing it, but it's smoother, a little bit smoother now, but it's a cookie cutter scallop. So it goes out like this, non-scallop for about 1.5 inches, and then it's got this really super deep scallop right here. And what that does is it causes a stress riser because there's a little space that's scalloped, and so the guitar top tends to buckle right there. What I do is scallop that last inch and a half of it. Go ahead and merge my scoop from the X brace into the other one, and then get the whole scallop to be real smooth and curved, so it looks a lot more like a GE, a Marquis, an Authentic, and an actual pre-war. They all have a nice smooth scallop to them. Even if they start from the X and they don't go full scallop right away, but they do start curving in, so the whole scallop is really smooth and come down to the end here where it comes to the point and drops again. So I call that finishing the scallop. I've got a whole video on that. If you will go search for the words finishing the scallop, you'll find it. I did that to this guitar. And what it's doing right now is it's just sitting here. I'm waiting for the top to settle in and belly up or whatever it's going to do. And I'm going to set the final saddle, which is really low on the treble side. You can see right over here on the treble side it's really low, so he doesn't have much bite angle right here. The bass side looks alright. Yeah, that's alright there. Let's go this way, see if you can see that a little bit better. Like that. Okay? You don't use the way the saddle looks to set the action, but I did measure this, and his treble side is pretty low. So the treble side can come up a little bit, the saddle's going to come up again, and I don't think he's going to need a neck reset. Earlier I talked about using the straight edge, so let's run a straight edge down here and let's just check this, okay? So you can see. And see, it's got a very slight bump at the bridge right there. It's coming up just a little, so it's not quite kissing the bridge. It would not kill this guitar to have a neck reset, but I don't think it actually has to have one just yet. It wouldn't hurt it to have one, but it doesn't have to have one. Let's go this way. See if I can get this on the camera. I'm going to lay this on the top, and I don't know. The edge of that fingerboard is up there pretty high, so you know, but that's why I left it strung up, because I wanted to see. Customer's perfectly fine with me doing a neck reset on him. He wants it right. This is one of his main guitars. Let's get this back here so we can get this on camera a little bit better. There we go. I'm going to slide that straight edge down there, and you can see it bumping up right there. So this guitar could benefit from a neck reset. It doesn't have to have one, but it could benefit from it. And it wouldn't be much of a neck reset. It'd probably be, I'm taking about 80 thousandths of an inch off the other. I'd probably end up taking 15 thousandths of an inch or so off the heel of this one. Not a lot. I'm looking at it to see if there's any light. Yeah, you know what? There is. I'm seeing light between the body and the heel when I hold it up to the fluorescent light up on the roof. So what we have is a slightly loose dovetail, and I'm pretty sure it's going to have paper shims in it. They still do. Martin uses paper shims on the dovetails, and man, I wouldn't do that. I understand why you do it in a factory setting, because it's quick, consistent. You know, paper's the same thickness, but paper tears, melts, shreds, slips this way. I am going to probably recommend that he let me reset the neck on this. Just because it came from New York, you know? He brought the guitar all the way out here. He wants it right. If the Marty was no problem, if this was my guitar in my shop and I owned it, I would reset that neck, because it doesn't cost me anything to do. So my recommendation on this guitar is, yeah, go ahead and reset the neck, and then we'll get it where we want it, and it's probably going to be good forever. Top's done bellying up on this guitar. And that's great belly too, man. That's smooth. There's no funny humps on it. Looks great. You know, I love HD28s. Pretty soon we're gonna change the tuners. I think he's getting waivers on this. I've got to go check emails and stuff. Let me just check on that again. But so that's one reason I like to let the guitar sit in here for weeks, month. You know, after I've done all the work to them, I like to let them belly up. I like to see what's going to go on with them. And in this case, I told them it was marginal for neck reset, and now I think it is marginal, but it's going to benefit from it. So, this guitar, 3/4 done. I think all it needs really is the tuners, and needs a pick guard, and it's going to need a neck reset. I'm going to recommend a neck reset. Okay? Took a pickup out of this. It had an LR Bags I-beam. And he doesn't really use a pickup much. We're going to put a K&K on it just to fill in the hole right there. The I-beam is a pretty good pickup, but it's heavy. You know, it's a big thing, and it sits up there on the bridge plate. It's got a power jack on it. Got a cord that runs up here. It's got a battery on it. It's just a lot of weight in the guitar for a guy that doesn't use the pickup very much. And, you know, I laid all those things out for him, and he said, well, let's get rid of it. I said, well, how do you feel about, you know, going ahead and putting a K&K in it to use the jack hole that's there, and then if you ever do need a pickup, you've got a K&K. It's non-intrusive. It's just little heads on it. It doesn't cause any issues whatsoever. It does not require a battery. You know, just a great pickup for that reason, because it's non-intrusive. So I'm pretty sure we're putting a K&K in this, and again, I gotta go check the emails. I shaved the back braces down on this, I can tell that. Standard 90s thing. Gives it the variable thump on the back. You can hear it getting deeper right there. High pitch, low pitch, right there. And that's the way the vintage Martins are. Before doing the back brace, I have a whole video on back braces. Go search my channel for back braces. Before you do that, it's a consistent tone across the back. So you shave the back braces, it gives them a more complex tone. You can feel the back kick you, stuff like that. So anyway, that's all done. So this guitar is going to get tuners, neck reset. It's going to get the final saddle. It's going to get the final pins. So it's almost done. 3/4 of the way done. The neck reset will be pretty easy on this because, like I said, the heel's loose already. So I'm really going to fit that heel in there tighter. That right there alone is going to improve the sound, because I bet you anything when I pull this neck, there's going to be paper shims in there. And I will be using wooden shims with fish glue, which is animal protein glue, like hide glue. I guarantee we're going to pick up a little sound right there. So, alright, that's that one. I think that's it for the guitars for the day. I've got another one over here. I've got a Collings I just brought back in from Denver. And it needs frets, which we don't need to really evaluate it so much, but maybe I'll do a video on that, because the owner asked, he said, have you done a video on crowning frets? If you go back a little bit, a couple more videos back, and you find where I talk about flat frets again, reference to that D18 flat frets, and go watch that video and just see what I'm talking about, buzzes and flat frets. And he's bought this Collings used. Collings is, you know, I mean, they're the pinnacle of fret making. So they're the pinnacle of frets. And so when I saw this, somebody had sanded the frets down, probably to level them with that, and they didn't crown them again. And I hate that. That crown is so important. And I personally never level frets. Generally, if there's a fret that's worn, a couple of frets around, I replace them. I keep them all the same height. I keep them all full height for various reasons. Okay? But I took one look at that and I said these frets have been 5 flat. The guys didn't go back in and crown them again. It's hard to crown them when they're lower. You know, you don't have the material to do it. So he's going to get new frets. He's going to get new Evo frets. And it'll be the last fret job he ever gets. But go back and watch that video where I was talking about how flat frets can cause buzzes. Okay? So last thing on this, if you made it this far, be sure that you look at the comments, not the comments, the description. The description for this video, and I've been putting playlists in there so that if you want to find all the videos I've done on repair work, it'll be on a playlist for repair work. If you want to see everything I've done on 70s Mortons, there's a playlist for 70s, and there's overlap a lot of times. You know, sometimes the same guitars is in the repair and the 70s and that kind of thing. I've got a playlist on frets. So I'm trying to put these videos into playlists so that you can go find the topic that interests you, because I've got over 450 videos now, and you know, it's hard to find them. It's hard to find information. So playlists will help. It's like a folder system. So okay, you can like my channel, you can subscribe, you can do all that stuff if you want to. There's our triage. Now I know what I got to do. I'm going to go in and take a nap.